It's much better than my Latvia.
If you don't understand something, then yeah.
We'll figure it out.
How did you came to Latvia? Was it project?
Okay. I found out about this opportunity through an email that I received. And what interested me in it is that I had been hosting visitors in the U.S. from other countries. And so it really seemed like a good fit for things. I hosted people because it was important to me for people to get a sense of a typical American, not just the government, not just some company, but to get the sense of a typical American. So I would invite people through this organization that I'm a part of to come to my home, and I would have dinner with them and we would just talk. And I met people from Turkey and Pakistan and South America. And so when I saw this opportunity for me to visit another country, I thought that would be a really good fit, because once again, just like I like to invite people into my home, I was excited about the opportunity to share with you, and especially with students, you know, some of my views about the U.S., because they're often going to be very different from the stereotypes that you hear.
What you know about Latvia before you came to this country?
I actually knew a fair amount. I had read about the Baltics. I had read about the Baltics getting their independence. I knew where Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia were. But I'm very interested in politics. I'm very interested in, you know, sort of what's happening in the world. So I stayed pretty well read. So I didn't know a lot about Latvia. I didn't know a lot about its history. I've learned a lot more since I knew I was coming here. But I had a sense of what Latvia was. I knew it had become independent fairly recently, along with other Eastern European countries. So that was sort of the sense that I had about Latvia.
How do you like your country?
I like your country very much. I think that there is a tremendous respect for the land, both in terms of nature itself, and there's a real respect for caring for things. I see a lot of people who make sure that everything looks good, that your streets are clean, and there's a lot of care about that, and that comes through to me. I also think the other thing that, as I said in a couple of groups earlier, is that the thing that Latvia has taught me to value even more is to value independence. Having read and experienced at the Occupation Museum everything that Latvia has been through. So those are at least some thoughts.
What do you think about Gulbene school?
I think your school is very good. I have been impressed with the math classes I have observed. Your students are involved. They are not just passive. They are actively participating in the work. They are most of the time engaged in their lessons, which is very important, and that may be Skolotāja Birūta, who helps them be engaged in their lessons. And I haven't had a chance to observe a lot of other classes, so I don't know. Most of what I've seen is math, but I've been very impressed with what I've seen in the math class. Your math curriculum is a little bit different from ours because of what we teach, particularly in 11th and 12th grade, but I think that's a conscious choice, and both have things to recommend them.
Which places have you visited in Latvia?
I'm sorry?
Which places have you visited in Latvia?
I spent a week in Riga before coming to Gulbene. And so I spent some time in Riga. I walked all over Riga. I went to the Occupation Museum. And then I did 2 day trips out of Riga. I went to Rundale. I took the bus to Bauska and then down to Rundale. And so I visited the Rundale Palace, which is an amazing restoration. And then I took the train to Sigulda and went to Sigulda and Trumulda and Tureda. And I thought Tureda was absolutely fabulous. I wish more of it had been open, You know, I think it's early in the season, so not all the exhibits are open at Dorado. Only some of it was open, but it was really wonderful. And I've been very blessed with spectacular weather since I've been here. I don't think you always have weather that is this nice.
Why you decided to become a math teacher?
Well, I worked in industry for a long time, so I've not always taught. I worked with computers, I ran computers, I managed groups of people who operated computers. So I did that for a long time, and then I decided that I really wanted something. I wanted to do something. I enjoyed what I had been doing, but I wanted to do something that I felt was a little more meaningful. And I thought it would be much more meaningful to work with students than to just work with computers. And so I decided 10 years ago to go back and start teaching. And I went back to school for a little bit, and then I started teaching. And I first taught in a big school that had 2,200 students in it. And I realized when I taught in a school that was that big that I needed to be in a smaller school where I could get to know the students. And so I ended up teaching at Castellea because Castellea was a small school, so it fit that criteria, and they were looking for a teacher at the time. And I've just stayed there ever since, so I've been at the same school for 10 years now.
How it is to teach only girls?
I think that teaching, the real advantage to teaching in a girls' school is the advantage for the girls. My impression is that between the time you're in 7th grade and 10th grade, there are 2 or 3 years where it's really helpful to not have to worry about what the boys are thinking about things. And so, to me, that's the real advantage of having a girls' school, is it gives them that time to sort of define who they are. After that, it doesn't matter, right? After that, it doesn't matter. But they really, you know, the real advantage of being at a girls' school is that it's a girl who runs the robotics club. It's a girl who's the president of the student body. There's no question. It's always going to be a girl. And so it gives them a much better sense, I think, of leadership. And that's one of the real advantages of being in a girls' school. When I taught in co-ed classrooms as a student teacher, I think the challenges are similar. I think that in the school I'm teaching in, there are fewer issues, like there are here, there are fewer issues of having to worry about controlling students and more focus on how do I engage every student. Most students are going to make an effort. The question is, can I get everyone engaged in what we're doing?
What is your motto?
What is my motto? The school's motto or my motto?
Your motto.
My motto? Someone asked that question earlier, and the two things that came to my mind were, number one, to respect everyone and respect everyone for who they are. And number two, to be honest with people.
How do you think why there is a big difference between general math topic in schools in Latvia and USA?
Difference between the math topics? Well, the biggest difference is that in the US, and particularly at my school, we teach for the 12th grade, we teach calculus or statistics for most of our students in the 12th grade. You wait for calculus until university. So in the 12th grade, you do a lot of work with three-dimensional geometry. And we don't do a lot of work with three-dimensional geometry in the US. Most of the topics that you cover in plane geometry and in algebra are very similar to the topics that we cover. But the biggest difference is in the 12th grade, where we teach calculus and statistics.
Is there anything that you would like to wish for our school teachers and students?
I have to think about that one for a second. Well, I guess it's been a privilege to watch your math classes. I guess the first thing I would wish is that I hope that in all your classes you are as challenged and as engaged as you are in your math classes, because that certainly is an excellent model. I hope that you are challenged to discover some things on your own, sort of like what we were doing in the last class, where I really wanted you to try some things and then discover that there's a problem or discover that something doesn't work. And I hope you have the chance to do that. And I guess the other thing is, I hope you have the chance to solve problems where when you start with the problem, you don't really know where it's going. You know, that you have to figure out what can I apply to solve this problem. One of the things that we really try to do with our students is make sure that they develop some good problem-solving skills. And those are really important. And having been in business for a long time, I believe that you may not go on in math, but you're always going to have to solve a problem. So if I can teach you how to solve a problem, or at least teach you some skills you can use to solve a problem, it'll help you be better in whatever you do.
Thank you for everything.
You're very welcome.